Hi, this is Julie, and welcome to Throwback Thursday. In honor of Mother's Quest turning 5, this season 7 of the podcast will bring episodes to you every Thursday. In addition to new episodes, we'll also share some powerful conversations from the archives. Keep in mind while listening that you may hear about some events or offerings that are no longer current. But whether you've heard this episode before or it's new to you, I hope you'll find something here as relevant as ever to light your way. Right now in the Mother's Quest Facebook group, many of us are in the midst of the Manifesto Challenge, an annual tradition inspired by the conversation you're about to hear with the Mom for Moms, Graeme Seabrook. Unfortunately, Graeme has been battling chronic illness over the last year and isn't able to join us live this month as she normally does. But we have the opportunity to take care of her. Visit mothersquest.vipmembervault.com to pay from the heart and sign up for the Manifesto Challenge. Proceeds this month from the challenge will go toward Graeme's GoFundMe to help her heal. You can also put Graeme Seabrook's GoFundMe in any search, and you can directly contribute to her GoFundMe account. What a powerful way to honor Graeme, this conversation, and help her get back to full health. Now, onto the show. Hi, and welcome to Mother's Quest, a podcast for moms like me ready to live our own truly epic life. I'm Julie Neal, a life and leadership coach, community builder, writer, and mom to 2 high-energy boys who challenge me to grow into my best self. I'll be right there. Where was I? In the months leading up to a big milestone birthday, I decided it was time to stop sidelining my dreams and realize that I'm the hero of my own journey. I knew I didn't want to do it alone, so I created this podcast to learn from other moms on their own quest, so their words of wisdom and lessons learned could help light the way for mine. I created this podcast for myself. Come along with me, and you'll find some treasures of your own. I'm so honored to bring you the special Mother's Day edition of the Mother's Quest podcast with Graeme Seabrook, a woman whose recent writing on reclaiming ourselves in motherhood through a mother's Bill of Rights had me laughing, crying, and cheering out loud. The moment I read it, I knew I wanted to have this conversation on the podcast. Graeme is a motherhood life coach who bases her approach to coaching on the belief that you must be a priority in your own life in order to thrive. Following a traumatizing birth experience and postpartum depression, anxiety, and PTSD, Graeme began a healing journey as a mother and a woman. Believing that our global culture treats mothers as if we're inhuman and expects us to be superhuman, she helps mothers reclaim our humanity through her work as the founder of the Mom Center, a social and coaching network for mothers, and through her speaking and writing. Before I share more about what we discuss in this episode, I want to introduce another powerful mother who is also a trainer, coach, and mentor to many, Desiree Attaway, who provides this week's dedication to Graeme herself.
Hi, my name is Desiree Attaway, and I'm happy and proud to talk a little bit about Graeme. So, in a previous life, I was a doula, and I understand what it means to help other mothers bring babies into this world. And honestly, really to think about the path, specifically for mothers of color and children of color, what we're bringing them into with all of the disparities that we know affect women of color, especially Black women, during the birthing process. It's been an honor and a pleasure to watch Graeme evolve and grow in her work and in her stories and in her messaging. She continues to support women in also being themselves, but being mothers, really fighting the way that we're socialized in this society and grounding the work that she does in terms of parenting and caring for other mothers in love and joy and support. And so I am a big fan of her work, and I just know all of y'all will be as well.
Thank you, Desiree, for that lovely tribute to Graeme. The joy and love that you see in Graeme was something I felt throughout this conversation as she generously shared about her lifelong quest to become a mother, the disillusionment she experienced in her first months of motherhood, and how she reached out for support to reclaim her life, something she now pays forward by creating and holding space for other mothers. We discuss the ways that living an epic life resonates for her, the epic guideposts in her life, and how the floodgates for impact opened as she crystallized everything she's experienced and thought about into the Mother's Bill of Rights, with 10 articles which I think are revelatory. A mother's right to personhood, privacy, space, care, voice, respect, name, dreams, desire, and visibility. This conversation felt like a reunion with a wise, lifelong friend, and I was spellbound by so many of her true truths, as Graeme calls them, about motherhood, sisterhood, and personhood. Among them, that every time we speak our truths, we create more space for people to share theirs, that we can heal each other and set each other free. And when you show up as your whole self, you cannot help but notice other people and their whole humanity. Just in time for Mother's Day, I hope this conversation inspires you to examine your own truths and that you'll record and share with us what you uncover using the hashtag 1MinuteMom Manifesto. It's a co-created challenge, a special Mother's Day gift from me and Graeme, an invitation to you for nothing less than a reclamation of your whole self. I'm Julie Neal, and this is Mother's Quest. Graeme, welcome to the Mother's Quest podcast, a special Mother's Day edition. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm so excited too. Thank you so much for having me.
We have a mutual friend, Nicole Lee, who I actually met through the podcast, who connected us. It was one of those funny moments where I think I had already reached out to you. I had seen your incredible Bill of Rights, which we're going to talk more about, and immediately sent you a message like, oh my God, you have to come on the podcast and talk about this. Just like minutes before Nicole made an introduction and said, you two should know one another. So this is obviously a conversation meant to be.
Yes. And Nicole is one of those amazing people. There are certain people that I call connectors because once you know them, then you know just everybody else in the world.
Yeah.
And she's one of those people. She seems to know everyone and to have a talent for knowing who should know each other.
Absolutely. Well, you were sharing that you've been listening to podcast episodes today, a little bit of binging. So you know the format. The first question is a chance to learn about you and what has shaped you. So tell me a little bit about your own childhood and the impact that your mother has had on you.
Okay. It was interesting. A lot of my mothering and a lot of my work is a reaction to not necessarily the way that my mother raised me, but my own mother's experience of motherhood. I always had the feeling that she did not enjoy it. And my mother loves me, first of all. Okay, my mother adores me. My mother has a wall of pictures of me in her house. It goes from my baby pictures all the way up to my high school graduation. When you walk down the hallway in her house, it's like this wall of Graeme, and it's a little like, okay, Mom, that's enough. That's enough. Okay. But I don't think she had fun being a mother. You know, I don't think that she felt confident being a mother. I don't think that she felt free or empowered or happy being my mom or being a mom, you know, not that it had anything specifically or personally to do with me, you know, but when you're a kid, you pick up on these things. And all I really knew was that she wasn't happy. But at the same time, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a mother. I mean, like 3 or 4, that was a big deal, that I wanted to have a baby more than like, I don't know, more than ice cream. And at 3, that's a big deal, right? So, I mean, it was just this very complicated thing the whole time I grew up, very much wanting mothering and motherhood, but not seeing a version of it that was empowering and fulfilling. So every once in a while I would wonder, like, why do I want this? This seems horrible. Why is this a thing that I want so badly when, the people that I see doing it don't seem to be having any fun? So I've been confused about motherhood most of my life. So here's the other piece of the puzzle. This is the missing piece of the puzzle, is we were all over the place. We lived in California until I was 3 or 4 months old. So I was born in California, but I, don't remember it at all. And then we moved to New York, and we lived in New York until I was 8. And then we moved to Charleston, South Carolina. And my parents at that time stopped moving. I kept moving. Well, that's not entirely true. We moved to Columbia, South Carolina for 6th grade through graduation. But it's like an hour and a half drive. That's not, it's not really a move. And then I went to New Mexico for a year and a half, part of college. I came back to Charleston. I went to Virginia for 7 years and came back to Charleston. I kept coming back to Charleston over and over and over again. And Charleston is the place that I am most from. Sometimes people who've moved around a lot, when you ask them where they're from, oh, I don't really know. No, I'm from Charleston. Like that's, this is where I'm from. Back when people used to have phone books, if you came to Charleston and looked in a phone book and looked up Seabrook, we took like 3 or 4 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that, about your family's connection there.
My family can trace its roots here on my father's side, all the way back to where we were enslaved here in Charleston, on some barrier islands out around John's Island. Ironically enough, Seabrook Island is not one of them, but it's the name of a Native American tribe that was here in the region. And what we assume, because we don't totally know, is that when my ancestors were able to live out their freedom, instead of choosing a name from somebody who had enslaved them, they chose a name that was indigenous to the area. We don't know for sure, but it makes sense. And so there are there's so many Seabrooks. There are so many. And then one of my aunts married into the Wilson family, which is like the second largest family. There's so many people here. And I love it now. Okay, so now in my late 30s with a family of my own, I love that. It's a totally different feeling when you're 22, 23, trying to be an adult for the first time in your life, out of school, working, trying to I was trying to have my Sex in the City moment and I couldn't do it in Charleston. It was not going to happen, right? Yeah, Carrie Bradshaw never had her aunt calling her and asking why she didn't go to church. That didn't happen. And I did, and it was too much.
That's really funny that we're both from the era where we were watching Sex in the City. I want to shift gears. There's so much I want to cover with you. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of living an epic life. And in what ways that does or doesn't resonate with you, and in your epic life, what you feel like you're most on a quest for these days.
Oh my gosh. It resonates so deeply. This is why I was listening to the podcast all day long, because it resonates so deeply. And I have been on a quest. The more that I think about it, it really has been my entire life. Because, like I said, I've been confused by motherhood my entire life. And the thing that I'm realizing now, just now, living my journey through motherhood, that I had always seen, even from my perspective as a small child, was that mothers didn't seem to be people anymore the way that everybody else was a person, or the way that I was a person, or my dad was a person, or my friends,
Yeah.
So now, from not 3-year-old Graeme, from 39-year-old Graeme, it is a quest for my humanity. for defining what that is and how my personhood and parenthood come together, where they pull apart. It's like watching a very slow dance. And trying to really interpret it, because I can't choreograph it. I can't. There's so much that's out of my control, right? There's so much. But just trying to interpret it as it's happening, as I'm living in it, trying to understand what is happening to me and what is coming next, and prepare myself as much as I possibly can. I'm reading a book right now, a series of books by Octavia Butler. And the first one is Parable of the Sower, and the second is Parable of the Talents. And in the book, there's a young woman who basically founds a religion. And in her religion, God is change. That's the noise I made. I'm not the first time I read that. That's the noise that I made. The first verse of their holy book is, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I just read it over and over. And I was like, I know this is fiction. I understand this is fiction. But whoa.
Can you say that again?
Right? It's really deeply amazing, right? Everybody just run out and get this, but you don't even have to run out. Just get on your phone.
Download it.
And download this book. It is, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. And there's more, but it ends with, God is change. And it is really, oh my goodness. And of course, in the book, there's a whole mother and daughter story, because really everything that comes into my life lately, I didn't know there was a mother and daughter story. I'm an Octavia Butler fan, and everybody had been saying to me, but you haven't read this one. You have to go read this book, right? So that's how it came into my life. But I was completely unsurprised that the second book in the series is written from her daughter's perspective.
Right.
Completely unsurprised. I was like, well, of course there's a mother and daughter.
Well, I love the power of metaphor. And, as you listen to more of the episodes, that has been one of the things that has really struck me from everybody's epic life journey and story, is how there's been so many different kinds, but so many powerful metaphors that have guided people. This is an incredible one. And this idea of the slow dance. I'm wondering how typically there is some kind of a spark moment. That I agree with you. This idea that, our whole lives we've been seeking, or we've been on a quest. And I also feel like there is a moment where you step more fully, or your eyes are open and you realize you're saying yes to the quest and to the epic journey. What was that spark moment for you?
After the birth of my first child, my son, I got extremely ill. I had postpartum depression and anxiety. I had a very traumatic birth. And so I had PTSD, but I didn't know that I had any of these. I had no clue. I thought that I was just weak and horrible and broken and wrong. And that this thing that I had wanted my entire life, because my son I didn't get pregnant until I was 34, which ironically was the same age that my mom was when she got pregnant with me. After wanting to have had a baby for 34 years, now I have this baby who is, objectively speaking, the most beautiful child that has ever been born.
Of course.
And I couldn't feel anything. There was this wall between me and this baby. I could feel nothing. And it was the most isolating experience. But that was not actually the spark. So about 9 months later, I was feeling much stronger. I had had therapy and medication and support groups and exercise and diet changes. And I did all the things. I pulled on all the levers that I could possibly pull on.
Before we move off of that, what was it that helped you make that shift to get all that support?
Oh, everything. Okay, Adam would disagree with me about this, but I am not good with pain. I am really not. I'm good with pain in the moment. I'm good with pain, crisis pain, but I'm not good with like paper cuts. Like if I broke my leg, I would probably be able to drive myself to the hospital. If I twisted my ankle, I would be on the couch for 3 weeks. So here I was in all of this pain. And for me, a lot of the depression manifested physically in fatigue and body aches. I felt like I had the flu for about 4 months. It was horrible. And also, Andrew wasn't sleeping really well. And yeah, I don't like hurting and I wanted somebody to fix it. So I was looking for somebody to fix it. And for me, I'm so, so grateful that the internet exists with as much problems and issues that we've had, right? It was these women on the other side of my computer screen who saved my life, literally. Not exaggerating, not hyperbole. They saved my life. I was Googling all of my symptoms and I kept coming back with postpartum depression. And I was like, no, that's ridiculous. I'm not crying. So I can't have depression. And so I just kept Googling because maybe if I type in these exact same words in a different order, then I will get different websites. Yeah, that's not how it works. And the people that I found, I was really lucky that the first people that I found, they did not say, you should do this. They said, we're really sorry this is happening to you. This is temporary and treatable. You will get better. There are 1,000,001 options. When I said, how, what do I do? They said, okay, so you can go to therapy. You can get medication. We can help you look for support groups. How much are you sleeping? How much water are you drinking? Are you getting outside every day? What are you eating? Like they really treated me like a person. And I think that was because the first people that I talked to were other survivors. They were moms.
Yeah.
I didn't encounter the medical complex first. I didn't encounter a doctor first or a therapist or psychiatrist or, I was talking to another mom. So they really were seeing me as, okay, so here's this woman in pain. And well, let's pull on all the levers. And that's just always been me anyway. That's a me thing. Like I want as much help as possible, as humanly possible. I just didn't want to feel like that anymore.
So you were incredibly receptive.
Oh, yes.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
And then what was the spark moment?
Okay, so spark moment, fast forward, it's 9 months-ish, something, I don't know. I was feeling well enough that I wanted to volunteer for, there's a local organization here called Postpartum Support Charleston. And every year for Mother's Day, the weekend of Mother's Day, they do the Mom Run, which is a 5K. And kind of ridiculous to do a race in South Carolina in May because no matter how early in the morning you do it, it's 1,000,001 degrees. But it's just perfect timing, right? It's Mother's Day. And so we do this 5K every year. And I wanted to do it. No, you know what? It was 11 months because Andrew was born in June. And then here I am. And I'm like, no, I'm going to do this 5K. That's only funny if you know that my idea of exercise is lifting pints of Ben and Jerry's on my couch, not like being outdoors at all.
So this was definitely a stretch.
Right? And in fact, I did not do it the first year. I did do it the next year. I went on their website to do the registration and I saw that they had a couch 5K. And that was like a way that people who couldn't walk or run for any reason or who weren't in town, they weren't going to be here, could still raise money. And I was like, oh, I can raise money. I can do this. And I started sharing my story as a way to raise money for this organization. I started sharing it on Facebook. I started sharing it and I sent an email out to, I don't even know, probably 60 or 70 family members because there's 1 million of us. Just saying like, okay, so this is what happened with me and this organization really helped me. And I'm trying to raise, I don't even remember what my goal was. I think it was like $500. And any little bit that you could give, you know. And the responses that I got, so many family members, friends reached out and said, oh my God, I had no idea. And that happened to me too. Like over and over and over again, Julie, to the point where I almost didn't want to open the emails, because every time it was never just like, oh, I'm so proud of you, here's $5. You know, it was these stories. And I was healing, but I was not really at a point yet where I could hold space for other people. You know, that's just a different level. I wasn't quite there yet. But that was the thing. I realized that I wasn't in a space yet where I could hold space for others. I didn't even know that term, but I wanted to be. I saw all of this pain from all of these other mothers, and I thought, well, that's just ridiculous. We should fix that. Because that's just kind of how my brain works. Yeah. And that was the spark. That was the thing that was like, no, we have to figure this out. We have to crack this code. There is an answer somewhere. This is not supposed to be like this.
Right.
As I got healthier, and as I met more mothers who were healthy and who had never dealt with depression or anxiety or OCD or psychosis or any of it, but they were still talking about a lot of the same things: guilt, shame, judgment, exhaustion, loss of identity. And I went, wait a minute. Okay, so it's not just us. All right. It's not just the moms that were sick. Oh, crap. This is everybody. The scope for a moment overwhelmed me. And by moment, I mean a few months. I don't mean a moment. I mean a really long time. I went into this like, okay, what do I want to do? Is this all moms? Or is this just PPD moms? Just any mom who's dealt with any type of mental illness? Like, who am I here for? Because I feel like you need to know that before you can be effective. You need to know who you're here to help.
And what did you do uncover?
All the mamas, literally every single one, all of you, everybody, everyone, all the moms. Now, at the same time, casting no shade and no aspersions on anyone who is saying like, I am here for single moms, or I am here for moms with mental illness, or I am here for moms of special needs kids or disabled moms, or what. Yes, we need all of those people. We need every single one of those people. And whatever your lane is, once you've found it, run with it. You know, this just happens to be mine.
Wow. I'm inspired, first of all, by your vulnerability, your ability to ask for and receive help. How quickly after that you were willing to share, and the floodgates of other people being able to own their experience and reach out to you and say like, this is me too.
It happens every time. It happens every time. It happens so much that I almost don't even want to say this to you, because I feel like I have said this sentence so much that people are going to start rolling their eyes when I say it. But I feel like some things are just, I call them true truths, because some things are just extra true, if that's possible. And this is the one that I've figured out lately. And that is that every time we speak our truth, we create more space for someone else to speak theirs.
Yeah.
So you can step out when your legs are shaking and your voice is shaking and you can fear the worst. You can step out knowing that as unique as we all are, and none of us are alone. Not one of us. And there's nothing that you've done or felt or suffered that other people have not. We're just not as creative as we think we are in our suffering. You know, we all think that we are the one and only tragedy. We're just not.
Yeah. I don't know if you've listened to this episode yet, but a conversation I had with my friend Genji Heiston, where we realized like there really is this common humanity among us, and especially among mothers. There's something about being a mother that I just think is so powerful. And it's the reason why I've been investing in Mothers Against Police Brutality. When you talk about the people, I think on your website, the people that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution.
Yes.
And I think, mothers both have the experience of what it takes to raise a child. They could see what's happening for their child, but then they know what it is also like to be in the position of raising a child. And I think there are some common experiences and bonds that happen through that process that maybe like any other.
Yes, exactly. We are the ones that can heal each other and can set each other free.
Let's start to talk about the EPIC guideposts. So EPIC is this idea of living a life that is like for the books, that we look back on and feel like it was filled with all the things that matter most. And it's also an acronym mnemonic for the guideposts that I think help us to live that life when we're raising our children. And the first one, E, stands for engaged mindfully with our children. Tell me what you've learned about how to do that and how to approach it from this unique perspective you have of reclaiming your right as a mother.
I say to all of my survivor moms, and this is survivors of trauma, survivors of addiction and mental illness and maternal mental illness, that we have a superpower, which is our 12-step programs and our therapists have taught us all of these emotion words. And there are so many parents out there who don't have that, right? And I know that in parenting, my kids are 2.5 and 4.5. And my 4-year-old just today said to his sister, "You are not expecting my brownies," which meant you are not respecting my boundaries.
I love it.
But my 4-year-old understands what boundaries are, and that his sister really was. She was, in 2-year-old fashion, she was extremely loudly violating his boundaries. He has seen me cry. He has seen me sobbing on the floor. Is there a huge part of me that wishes that he had not seen me sobbing on the floor? Yes. But because of my 10 million years of therapy, I was able to say to him, like, you know what, Mommy's really sad right now. And that's okay. I get to be really sad right now. And sometimes you're really sad too. And he nodded his little, this was this conversation that I'm specifically thinking of. He was around 3. And so he still had that super fat, chubby face. So his little cheeks kind of turned down, and he just nodded. And I know he was thinking of some time when he was sad. And then we just sat there, and it was like, you know what? I think a hug would make me feel better. And he gave me a hug. And did I feel a million times better? No. There was an element of fake it till you make it in there, right? But it was also a moment of honesty between the two of us. And he learned in that moment that sometimes Mommy thinks about things that aren't me. What? Shocker. And that sometimes Mommy gets sad. And that even when Mommy is sad, I'm still safe and she still loves me and everybody's still okay. It's not the end of the world. It's just sadness,
Yeah.
And we've built on that foundation all of these other things, that sometimes Mommy goes on vacation by herself. Yes, she does. And it is fabulous. And sometimes he goes on vacation by himself. Well, this is what he calls going on vacation by himself, is that he goes to his grandparents' house. And that's his vacation. Vacation. Sorry, it's a vacation. One day he's going to pronounce all of these words correctly, and I am going to cry so hard.
Right. Don't try to correct it too soon.
I don't correct any of it. What I usually do is run for my phone. And if I can't turn the video on, then I at least turn the audio recorder on, and I'll say, "What was that, buddy?" And then try and get him to say it again. Because, I just love it. Those are the things that can bring me up even on a really hard day.
Yeah.
Sorry to get sidetracked.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So what I'm hearing here, what I'm really taking away in terms of engaging mindfully with your children is that you bring your whole self with your whole wide range of emotions.
Yes.
And that you allow them to see you and to know that there is more to you beyond just your connection and relationship to them, that you also create time for yourself. And then even in this little story about the way that your son is speaking, I also hear that you really see your children in the full range of who they are and, really want to capture the moment, not rush it away.
Yeah. And we'll see, that's the trick. So this is what happens when you show up as your whole self and you bring your entire self into a room. You cannot help but notice other people in their entire humanity. Because the dark parts of you are going to notice the dark parts of them. The quiet parts of you are going to notice the quiet parts of them. All the introvert and extrovert parts of each other. We're going to see all of that. If I only bring in the mother part, then I only see him as a child part, right?
Yeah.
When I bring in all of me, mommy and Graeme and all of it all together, then I have to see him as my baby, but I also have to see him as Andrew, his own person that he has ownership of. And that's hard. It's hard. That's like, oh, I don't always want to do that. I don't always want to, honestly, I don't always want to do that. That is a lot of work. For me, that's where the work comes in.
Yeah. Wow. So good. Let's move to the next guidepost, P, which stands for passionate and purposeful. And this is about the impact that you make beyond your family. Tell me about how you're doing that today. And in particular, there's been so much that you've been rolling out in the last few weeks. I don't know how, you'll have to share at some point too, maybe like a productivity tip, because I'm like, how are you creating this? And it's also genius. So tell me how you are making your difference right now.
I do feel like this is a time of transition for me. I just released the Mother's Bill of Rights, which I know it seemed like it all came out at once, but that was months of writing and planning and scheduling to make it seem like this flood. And I opened the Mom Center, which is a private coaching space. It's half social network and half group coaching. Hopefully it's the best of both. That for me right now is where I feel like the deepest impact is happening, because the moms that are there are getting full focus. When I am tuned in there, I am tuned in all the way. And that is where so much of my work is happening right now. And then I also have my website. And once I finished writing the Mother's Bill of Rights, it was like the taps had been opened. And I think right now I have like 7 or 8 blog posts that are scheduled. Wow. That are just ready to go. So the words are coming. They're coming.
Yeah, it's just the crystallization of everything you've been thinking about, working toward, evolving.
It is
so powerful. Can you give us, I know we're going to include links to all of these things, but can you give us the overview of this idea of a Mother's Bill of Rights and a little taste of it?
Sure, it is. So the basic premise is that you're a human being. I know this is shocking. So you're a human being, and that you didn't stop being a human being when you became a mother. That there is no point at which you gave up your humanity. And it's about reclaiming the basic human rights that motherhood, as the way that it is practiced here in the US, tends to steal from us. So I got the idea to make it a Bill of Rights, and our Bill of Rights has 10 articles, and I thought, okay, there you go. And then they all just kind of popped into my head. So they are personhood, privacy, space, care, voice, respect, name, dreams, desires, and visibility. It's a lot.
Tell us in a nutshell what they each encompass.
Okay. So personhood is first because it really encompasses everything else on the list. It is the idea that you need to reclaim your personhood from parenthood and separate the two. Privacy is that you did not give up the rights to your body, your thoughts, your mind, your space, which is the next one, that some things are allowed to be private. Space, I give the analogy of the mom in the bathroom with the tiny little fingers stuck under the door, right? That you are allowed to claim your space and you don't have to open that door. Care is all about mothering as caregiving and mothers receiving care with grace, which is hard for us to do a lot of times. And voice is about the power of mothers' voices when we raise them collectively and speak our truths. Respect is about the lack of respect that we have for the work of mothering. And when I say we, I mean we, literally every single person within the sound of my voice, including myself. Name is about the fact that your name is not mommy. Somebody named you, or you chose a name. And mommy is one of the things that you are called, but it is not your name. Dream is about the ones that we have let go and the ones that we haven't found yet. Desires is just what it sounds like. We talk about sex and all of the myths and mythology around mothers and sexuality. And then the last one is about visibility, and it's about really being seen as a whole human being. So personhood comes first for a very specific reason, and visibility comes last for a very specific reason. They are bookends of the whole thing.
Would you mind saying the last one again, the visibility?
Sure. Visibility is about each of us stepping into the light and being seen as whole human beings, right? And so personhood came first for a very specific reason, and visibility came last for a very specific reason, right? They bookend the whole thing. Yeah.
I love it. Well, you write about these in such a compelling and real way. And I think the first time I found out about it, it might have been around Article 3 space. You had something about the creep. Can you talk a little bit about the creep? Because it really made me laugh.
Oh my God, kid creep. So kid creep is when you reach into your purse for your wallet and you pull out a diaper, which happens to me at Target and was slightly embarrassing. Kid creep is when you're going into your drawer to get socks or underwear or whatever, and you pull out kids' underoos. Kid creep is the fact that your car now looks like the inside of a gymboree. Like, this is not the way adult people are supposed to live.
It's just literally signs are everywhere.
Oh, I want my life back. I want my drawers back. I want my rooms back. I want, oh my goodness. And you're, especially with really little kids, you're like, they didn't put that here. You know, your 2-year-old is not putting away their laundry. They didn't put that in your drawer. It just gets everywhere. Your whole life gets taken over by these tiny little humans. Oh my goodness.
And so along the lines then of the impact that you're making, what are the gifts and things that you are bringing to mothers to help them to reclaim their lives?
I feel like my superpower is asking questions and then just waiting. Honestly, just sitting there, waiting patiently, the way that a dog does when you have food and you're not giving it to them. With that same expression on my face sometimes when I'm doing video coaching. Like, no, we're just going to sit here until you answer this question. But it is about like holding that space for them to fill it with whatever their truth is.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned earlier in your story about how when the floodgates of all of these emails came to you initially, you weren't ready to hold the space.
Yeah. I have no idea how to do that.
Now that's one of your superpowers.
Yes. I mean, this is after training. This is after years of coaching training and mentorship and peer support training. And I mean, there's been work that has gone into this. And yes, now it is one of the things that I love to do most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a great transition to the next guidepost, I, which stands for invested in ourselves. And this is where we do claim the space for our own self-care, for our own growth and learning, to do the things that bring us joy. What would be the biggest lessons you've learned or offerings that you would have to us listening for how to do that?
I have to put myself on the calendar or it doesn't happen. And I mean, like, literally write it in. We have a Google Calendar, which is where most of our family stuff goes, doctor's appointments and, you know, school stuff and his stuff and my stuff. And I will put on the calendar, mom is taking a bath, kid bath, mom bath. Will go on the calendar, or Graham's night, or planning things, because I see so many mothers that are like, I'm going on a retreat in September. And when I told one of my friends, she was like, oh, I wish I could do that. And I said, okay, well, come with me. You can. Well, how would I get childcare and it's September. We had plenty of time to figure that out. Like, this was March when we were having this discussion. Put yourself on the calendar and then figure it out, because once you're on the calendar, you will figure it out.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
I just had this thought. My relationship with my Google Calendar has been evolving through the process of, since I launched the podcast. And I have an episode with Kathleen Shannon from Being Boss, where, we actually spent a lot of time talking about crafting your ideal week and using your Google Calendar and looking at your ideal versus your reality. And I'm still working on it, kind of time blocking and thinking about like certain days and times for things. I feel like I just keep getting going another layer to try to make it work. And as you were saying that about putting yourself on the calendar, I think I'm going to start actually like labeling I dash, and then whatever it is.
Yeah.
And maybe and commit to like, I need to see at least like, I don't know, 3 or 4 specific I things per week.
Oh my gosh,
going
you're
on
making me so happy right now.
Thank you for that, planting that seed. I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, so here's a pro tip. Do that first. Go scroll through and find the next clear week where there isn't really anything on the week yet.
Ooh.
Put yourself on the calendar first and hold that space. And if somebody says, oh, this is the only time I can come be on the podcast. Oh, well, too bad. You're busy. That is like next level. That's like level 10 self-care right there. It's a big deal.
Level 10. I love it. I'm inspired. Let's read to the next guidepost, C, which stands for connected. And this is about being in relationship so that you are in community and not isolated on your journey. You've learned so much about this. What's coming to you when you think about this guidepost?
Oh, all these women. And the myth that women can't have amazing friendships, that groups of women always end up being catty and mean girls. And it's crap. It's a myth. It's not true at all. I have been and continue to be a part of communities of women, communities of mothers that are amazingly supportive and that collectively hold space for each other with such grace that it is humbling. And we're also pretty silly and funny and hilarious. Like, we're pretty awesome, I have to say. So, yeah, I mean, as soon as you said connection, I just thought, oh, my mom. Yeah.
What have you learned about forging a connection with your partner?
He is so cool. Okay. Oh, I can't believe I just said that. He's going to hear this and then I'm never going to hear the end of it. So he's just really funny. So here's the thing. We went through some really traumatic things really early in our relationship. We had been dating about 4 months when we found out I was pregnant. Oops. And yeah. And then I got really, really sick. Right. So then, I mean, we went through these really horrible things in what everyone calls the honeymoon phase. It wasn't really the honeymoon phase. We're kind of getting to that part now that things aren't, things have let up a little bit.
Yeah.
But through the whole thing, we have made each other laugh, and we have been deeply concerned about each other through our whole journey. One of the things actually my therapist said to both of us once was that we had to stop worrying about the other person so much. Both of us were, she was like, you're both just sacrificing for the other, and neither one of you is picking stuff up off the table. You're both just giving and giving and giving, and nobody is receiving. And it was, we were such a mess. But that's a great way to be. Like, if you have to be a mess, that's a pretty good mess, right?
Yeah, just both so giving.
Yeah. But so now we've both been working on self-care. We've both been working on saying, like, this is what I need, Yeah.
It is interesting. I do think that the cultural conversation around motherhood and sacrifice is distinct. And I'm glad you're saying this, because I also think that fathers can feel the same way about giving and not making space. In fact, I've been trying to encourage my husband I've been now really good about saying yes to, more of these connections, yes to girls' weekend away, yes to my own learning experiences, going to a retreat next week. And he hasn't been doing that as much for himself. So I appreciate just the awareness that it can be something that both parents struggle with.
Oh, definitely. I've really found that the more the mother starts working on it, she starts to notice, oh, I am, like you just said, I'm going on this thing and I'm doing that, and he hasn't done this. And so she starts to be like, hey, babe, why don't you XYZ? Why don't you go, and that happens, in all different types of couples and all different types of relationships. The primary parent, or whoever's working with me, honestly, whoever's working with me starts taking more care of themselves, because that's what my work is. And then they'll say to me, oh, my wife sucks at that. I need to really push her on this. Like, I really need to help her do this. Or my husband is terrible at this, and I really need to help them. Or my sister, whoever is living in their house and supporting them. You start to see it. You get healthier, and you start to see the world differently and want other people to be healthier. That's how it works.
Yeah. I know we're getting close to the end of the conversation, and we're going to identify a challenge that we're going to say yes to for ourselves and invite others in, and end with acknowledgement. But before we do that, I like to ask people about something I call an epic snapshot moment. So this idea is, a moment where time kind of slows down or stands still, and you feel like you are experiencing everything that matters most, and you just would like to bottle it up if you could. What is a recent example of an epic snapshot moment in your life?
Oh my goodness. It was yesterday. I had a conversation. I went to a retreat in March, and one of the speakers is a woman that I have admired for so long, and was so nervous to be at the retreat with her. Like, I was just really nervous that she was even going to be there, because I thought I was just going to fangirl and embarrass myself. And her talk and the exercises and everything, she just broke me wide open. And a lot of the work that I have done since then can be directly traced back to that experience of meeting her. And she reached out to me and said, hey, would I mind talking to her about her talk at the retreat? And she was just looking for some feedback, and she's always trying to grow and get better. And, and I'm like, yes, Lauren, any possible moment that I can be in your presence, yes, I will do it. And while we were having the conversation, she said that one of the pieces I had written, that every time she read it, she cried. And that every time she tried to explain to anybody else why it was important to her, she started crying. and that she was just sharing it with everybody.
Mm.
And oh my gosh, to have somebody say that to you when you just adore them, you know, that was really big. That was, yeah. I don't even know that I have words for it right now. Epic is a word. Epic is the word for it.
Epic does capture it. What was the exercise and what did you write?
Oh, okay. So she has you walk through this idea of becoming an ancestor now. That you're not going to be an ancestor after you're dead or when you're like in your 80s and you're wise, but that you can live your life right now in this moment. I'm getting chills like just saying this to you. Wow. Live your life right now in this moment as an ancestor for your children, for your children's children, for their children, but you do it right now in everything that you do. And I had always thought of it as something I had to earn. I had to prove my worth, right? Yeah. I actually wrote a piece on Medium that was called My Ancestors' Wildest Dreams.
Ooh.
And it was about the idea of like, what if it's just me living my life, loving my kids, doing my work, cooking food, taking a bath, you know, and that is what they wanted for me, just peace and freedom, because that's what I want for my children and their children's children is just peace and freedom, whatever that means to them. Right.
Amazing.
It was all her. It was all Lauren. That was not me. That was Lauren. That was totally Lauren.
We'll definitely include the link to that. And I can't wait to read it. That's incredible. On the subject of ancestors, you mentioned before we pressed record that you were getting ready to move and that it's evoking a lot of feelings for you because you can retrace your family's history to where you're living now. So I have some curiosity about like, what is the impact of that connection to your ancestors and how do they inform how you want to live your life and show up as a mother?
That's a whole other episode. Because there's just it's such a rich history of teaching, quite honestly. That is the word that comes to mind first. My father's mother just gathered all of the children of the neighborhood and taught them how to read in her kitchen. And this was in like the 40s here in Charleston. My dad is 89 right now. So, which is my dad was 50 when I was born. So I have a slightly different experience of ancestry than maybe others do. I'm named after her. And the women in my family are extraordinary. My name is extremely important to me. The names that I have given my children, they matter deeply. It is a passing down and a legacy. So leaving here is, there are so many levels to it. And I actually will be doing some things like going to places that are important to our family and collecting soil from them and taking it with me. And going to the beach and putting a little bit of the ocean into a mason jar and taking it with us to Colorado because there's no ocean in Colorado. I don't know if you knew. It has been a coming to terms with the fact that they are already in me. And I think that's part of why Lauren's talk was so transformative for me, that I have already joined them. It is not something that I have to wait to do, that I am already a part of them. And they have been with me this whole entire time. And they are already with my children. We're not alone.
Yeah.
Even if we're not physically here, right? We're not alone. So yeah, that is the connection. That is what we will be taking with us.
That's really beautiful. And I think, around Mother's Day, this realization, which I've been getting more curious about for myself too, that we are, connected to our matriarchs, and just this way in which, we are building on the legacy that they created for us, and we're passing that to our children.
Yes.
And imagining Mother's Day not only as our own day, but a day to really honor and remember our matriarchal lineage that brought us here.
Yeah.
In my mind right now, listening to you.
Yeah. And also not necessarily the blood lineage, but the chosen lineage as well, because some of us have deep wounds with our mothers.
Yeah.
And so it can be really painful on Mother's Day. But on Mother's Day, part of what I will be doing this year is honoring all of my ancestors and my claimed ancestors, as well as blood ancestors, the related ones. So women like Octavia Butler and Audre Lorde and Maya Angelou I claim them as my ancestors, even though I am not directly descended from them. So if your relationship with your mother was not what you needed it to be, there are so many amazing women in the world. Oh my goodness. So many that you can claim, that you can learn from, that you can sit at their feet, either literally or metaphorically, and have them as an ancestor.
I love that. The awareness for our claimed ancestors. That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, let's move on to our collective challenge.
Yay! I'm so excited.
Me too. You and I were brainstorming earlier, and we realized we had this common desire. Usually I would have you give me a challenge, but instead we're co-creating this one, which I think is going to be amazing. So do you want to explain it?
Well, it started because I called the Mother's Bill of Rights a manifesto. And you said, oh, manifesto. And we had the same thought kind of at the same time. So this challenge will be for all of you listening to create your own manifesto. Can you hear all of them just freaking out? Like, I can't do that. Oh my God.
No, it's too big.
No, Julie solved that problem for you guys though.
So my thought, which I had in the shower the other day, because I have been holding this idea of a manifesto. In fact, I've been trying to write a manifesto for years, and it has felt too big and overwhelming to me. And so the other day I had this thought of it needs to be a 1-minute manifesto, because let's be real, we don't have time.
Who has that kind of time?
And it can becomes an overwhelming feeling. So in 1 minute or less, what are the things that really matter most to you in your motherhood journey? What do you want to claim or reclaim for how you want to show up as a mother and a person and a human in your life during this time when you're raising your children? So for Mother's Day, this episode's coming out just before Mother's Day, and we want to kick off an invitation using the hashtag 1 Minute Mom Manifesto for you to share what your thoughts are, what you want to claim in a video or in writing or in photos or whatever way is helpful to express that.
I am so excited. So excited about that.
And then I also mentioned to you that my vision for this is to experience 1 million of these.
Yes.
So we will start this year, and who knows when we will hit, but I have no doubt there will be 1 million 1 Minute Mom manifestos.
We need them. We need each other, and we need each other's stories.
Yeah. And there's so much power in hearing the stories, which is why I have one of my most favorite parts of my episodes is actually the dedications that happen at the beginning of each episode, where I invite a different mother to honor a mother who has inspired them. And it's not always their biological mother, also the mothers that they've claimed or that they are modeling their own motherhood after. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we create and witnessing all the powerful stories. Thank you so much for the inspiration for that.
Y'all have to do this. Okay, come on. It's going to be beautiful. It's just going to be beautiful. I already know.
And as you say that, the other thing that has been stopping me beyond the feeling that Manifesto felt so big is a feeling of like to do it alone. So the fact that you and I are partnering on rolling this out and inviting people to do it feels exactly right. I am certain that we could actually continue this conversation with for hours. And I hope that we will have more of these conversations.
Yes.
But it is time to close this particular one. And I like to close all my episodes with a chance for each of us to identify what our biggest takeaways are or anything that we want to acknowledge in one another or the conversation. So I can go first, which is I actually feel the joy and the lightness and the humor and the exuberance in you and your life, like from the moment before we pressed record until now. And so appreciate the journey that you have moved through to claim or reclaim that for yourself. And I'm struck by your intentionality and your gifts about holding space for other mothers to do the same. I think that's the way that you have crystallized everything you've been thinking about and experiencing and hearing from other women into this really cohesive, Bill of Rights. Just the language and the imagery and the reality that you infuse in all of that is just such a joy and such a gift. So I'm taking all of that with me, plus some pro tips on scheduling in time to invest in myself and to really think a little bit differently about being an ancestor. So thank you for all of these amazing things I can bring now into my Mother's Day celebration this year.
You are going to make me cry. I'm so I should have gone first. Then I could have cried and it wouldn't have mattered. But now I have to sound like an adult. Okay. So, no, Julie, that was beautiful. Okay.
First of all, so I'm going to bring you back to the lesson I learned from you on the E.P.I.C Guidepost about showing up with the full expression of who you are. So there is no need to hide any of your tears. In fact, I'm just really curious. What does the emotion mean?
Oh, because it's when you said joy, because joy has been a thing that I've been fighting for so long. So the fact that you can feel it, that just makes me really happy, like really, really happy. And I cry at everything. Oh my gosh. I cry at everything. I cry when I'm sad and mad and happy. And that means so much. It really does.
And what are your takeaways?
Oh, I love the fact that I got to listen to the podcast so much today, because this feels just like a continuation of what I've been listening to, instead of, at times, it feels like listening to it myself instead of being in it. It's a little bit surreal.
Yeah.
This structure that you have created for this conversation just immediately gets to the meat of things without making people feel pressured. There was no moment during this conversation where I felt like, oh, I have to come up with something deep or something worthy of some type of a snapshot or something. The way that you have guided this whole conversation and held space for it has just felt very comfortable and natural. And I know that it's not easy. So I really appreciate it. I appreciate the questions that you've asked. I appreciate the thought that's gone into them. It just feels really good. It feels really good to be doing this. I want to just keep talking to you.
Well, thank you. When you were talking about the conference that you went to and the way that you felt when the person who led you through that exercise reflected back the power of your words, hearing you talk about how much the podcast conversations that you've been listening to today are resonating for you, and that you felt that same space for reflection and connection in our conversation means everything for me.
Oh,
so that is
so glad.
the highest compliment. And I'm so excited to know you and to be kicking off this challenge together. And I have no doubt that we will continue to be in connection with one another on this epic life journey of ours. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this episode of the Mother's Quest podcast. I hope this conversation sparked something that will help you live your epic life. If you'd like to get show notes and learn more about the Mother's Quest community, head over to mothersquest.com. And while you're there, I would love it if you would follow the prompts to subscribe, leave a review, and help us spread the word. I want to end with some words to help light the way on your quest. Seize the day. Love your people. Honor your gifts. Until next time.